Story 1. I've always believed the road has its own ghosts. Maybe it's the way headlights carve out faces in the trees, or how the dark between mile markers swallows sound. But that night, that particular stretch of highway showed me something I can't forget, something I wish I hadn't seen. It began with an empty gas tank and a bad decision. I had been driving for hours. The highway stretched flat and endless under the stars when I saw the light, a single neon sign sputtering open, half-lit, barely clinging to life. The gauge on my dashboard was flirting with empty. I didn't want to stop, but I had no choice. The station looked abandoned. The buzzing lamps painted the lot in sickly yellow, their glow cutting through the fog that clung low to the ground. I rolled in slowly, the gravel crunching in a way that sounded louder than my engine. There was only one figure in sight. An old man shuffled from the shadows of the garage, his back bent, his uniform faded and stained with something dark. He raised a shaky hand. "Evening," he croaked. "I'll pump it for you." I almost told him no, but his cloudy eyes didn't seem to invite argument. Instead, I muttered, "Thanks," and climbed out to stretch my legs. That's when I saw the tiny shop attached to the station. Its glass door was propped half open, light flickering inside. I figured I could grab a bad cup of coffee and keep myself awake for the last leg of the drive. I pushed my way in. The smell hit me first. Stale air mixed with motor oil and the faint sweetness of something rotting. Rows of dusty chips and faded soda cans lined the shelves. A radio played softly in the corner, but the sound was warped, like a voice underwater. And then I froze. Behind the counter stood the same old man, same crooked posture, same hollow eyes, same oil-stained uniform. For a long moment, I thought maybe I was mistaken, that gas stations sometimes had workers who looked alike, perhaps brothers or twins. But when his lips pulled into a smile, I felt my stomach twist. His grin seemed stretched too far, the skin of his cheeks straining unnaturally. "You found me," he whispered. I snapped my eyes to the window. Outside, through the hazy glass, I saw him again, still by my car, still pumping gas as if nothing were wrong. My heart pounded against my ribs. I turned back. The old man behind the counter was closer than before, leaning forward, his grin wider, his voice like dry leaves rustling. "You shouldn't have stopped here." My breath hitched. I stumbled back, knocking my elbow against a rack of candy. The sound echoed in the tiny shop far louder than it should have. Who are you?" I stammered. No answer, just that grin. His milky eyes never seemed to blink. I looked again outside, but the figure at my car was gone. The pump hung loose from the tank, swinging gently in the night breeze. A sudden dread wrapped around me, heavy as a chain. I felt watched, not by one person, but by many. From the aisles behind me, I heard shuffling footsteps, slow, determined. I whipped around, rows still empty, but the sound continued, circling me like predators in tall grass. When I looked back at the counter, the old man was gone. Panic took the rest of me. I bolted for the door, shoving it open with a force that almost tore it from its hinges. My car sat where I'd left it, but the lot felt different, darker, infinite. The lights above flickered violently, shadows jerking across the asphalt. And then I saw him again. Not one, not two, dozens. Around the gas station from the far corners of the lot, out of the fog, more and more figures shuffled closer, each one the same bent elderly man, the same oil-stained jumpsuit, the same grin splitting their faces. My legs locked for a moment, terror freezing me in place. I forced myself into the car, slamming the door, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared, but with it came a chorus of whispers, hissing through my closed windows. "You shouldn't have stopped here." Over and over. Louder each time. I floored the accelerator, tires squealing across gravel. The crowd didn't move to block me. They just stood there, staring, grinning, growing smaller in the rearview mirror. But then, my blood ran cold. In that mirror, I saw the old man, not outside, but seated in my back seat. His lips curved to that too wide smile as he leaned close to my ear. "You're still here," he whispered. I swerved in panic, nearly losing control of the wheel. But when I looked over my shoulder, the seat was empty. Empty, except for the faint smell of oil and something rotting. I didn't stop again until I reached the glowing lights of a city. Even then, I kept watching the mirrors, unable to shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, he had never left the car. And sometimes at night, when the road is empty and the gaslight flickers on, I swear I hear him breathing in the back seat. Story 2. I don't talk about that night often. Not because I don't remember it, but because I remember it too clearly. If I close my eyes, I can still see the red and blue lights painting the desert, still hear the crunch of boots on gravel, and still feel that sick horror of realizing we weren't going to make it home. It started innocently enough, with tired laughter and greasy fast food wrappers spread across the car. We were 4 college friends inching back toward campus after a long road trip. Music buzzed through the speakers, conversation fading as the highway stretched on, endless black tar between patches of scrub and shadow. That's when the gaslight blinked on. We were in the middle of nowhere, no lights in the distance, only the occasional tumbleweed crossing under our beams. But then, like an oasis, a glowing sign appeared in the dark. Open 24 hours. A small gas station, isolated and lonely, its lights humming into the desert silence. None of us said it aloud, but the place looked wrong. Still, we pulled in. There wasn't another car in sight. The station's neon flickered like it had been there forever, buzzing like a dying insect. My friend Sam cursed under his breath. "Man, this looks like a horror movie set." We all laughed uneasily, and then the headlights appeared. A police cruiser rolled in behind us, slow, deliberate. It slid into position at the only exit, cutting off any way back to the road. The engine purred low, almost predatory. We went quiet. The officer got out. Tall, thin. His uniform looked almost too clean, too pressed for this lonely station in the desert. His face was shadowed under the brim of his hat, but when he spoke, his voice was smooth, rehearsed, like an actor in a role he had played too many times. "Evening, folks." We muttered back greetings, nervous laughs spilling into the night. "I'm going to need to see what's in your trunk." We blinked at him, confused. "What? Why?" I asked. He tilted his head just a little too far, bird-like. "Got a report. Vehicle just like yours was spotted leaving the site of a crime. Standard procedure. Nothing to worry about." His smile was wrong, too wide, hanging longer than it should. And in the stillness of the desert, his teeth almost gleamed. We tried objecting. We had nothing to hide. We were just college kids, but his tone sharpened. Now, the silence was suffocating. Reluctantly, Sam fumbled with the keys, hands shaking, and popped the trunk. The lid lifted, and inside was a body. Blood stained the lining. A woman, or what was left of her, folded unnaturally, eyes glassy, mouth frozen mid-scream. None of us had ever seen her before in our lives. Sam stumbled back, gagging, swearing. My heart thundered so hard it hurt, my stomach turning inside out. We don't," I tried to explain, but the words stuck like glue. The officer leaned over the trunk, calm as dawn. He didn't look surprised. He looked delighted. "I figured as much," he whispered, smiling wider until his cheeks seemed ready to split. "Car's a perfect match." The station's lights flickered behind us, and with each flicker, more lights bloomed in the distance. Headlights, one after another. Silent cars rolling into view, forming a half circle around us in the dirt lot. Not moving fast, not rushing, just sliding in, like they'd been waiting for their cue. dozens of them. Every door opened at once. Officers, identical uniforms, identical eerie grins, stepping out in unison. Their radios hissed static, but no voices came, just the sound of gravel crunching under synchronized footsteps. We froze, pressed together like prey surrounded by wolves. The first officer turned back to us, his grin stretching unnaturally wide, skin pulling too thin for a human face. His voice was no longer smooth. It rasped, a hiss, almost joyous. "You've brought her back." I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to sprint into the dark desert, no matter how far it went. But the gas station lot seemed endless, the desert beyond shifting and twisting, like it stretched on forever. Sam slammed the trunk shut like closing. It might make all of it disappear. Big mistake. The chorus began. Every officer smiled in unison. Their mouths opened. And though no lips moved, their voices flooded the night, dozens layered on top of each other, chanting words I didn't understand, words that made my skin crawl, words that sounded older than English itself. The headlights pulsed with each chant, like a heartbeat. The ground trembled faintly at first, then violently. Beneath us, under the cracked pavement of the gas lot, something huge shifted, something alive. The body in the trunk twitched, her broken arm straightened, bones cracking back into place. Her eyes, once glassy, snapped toward me, and she smiled, with the exact same smile as the officer. Sam screamed. The others stumbled back. I don't even remember my own voice, only the roar of blood in my ears. The chanting grew louder. The body crawled out of the trunk, joints bending wrong. The officers just watched, patient, hungry. The woman stood, her shadow stretching impossibly long under the flashing lights, reaching to touch each of us. When she spoke, her voice was his voice too. "You were never going home." I don't know how we got out of there. Maybe we didn't. Sometimes when I replay it, I think we never left that gas station at all. That we've been stuck in that moment forever, trapped in headlights that never turn off. And when I drive at night now, if a cruiser pulls in behind me, even for a second, my heart freezes. Because I know what's waiting in my trunk. Story 3. People don't believe me when I tell this story. They say I was tired or dreaming, or maybe I nodded off at the wheel. But I know what I saw. I know what we all saw. And I can't forget the sick feeling of being trapped on a road that wanted to keep us. It started as a perfectly normal stop. We were driving home from visiting relatives, hours past midnight. The kids were dozing in the back seat, my wife humming softly next to me, when the gas needle hit empty. The road stretched through miles of farmland, no lights except for the occasional porch in the distance. That's when I spotted the neon sign flickering in the dark. Gas. Open 24 hours. Relief washed over me. I woke the kids. "Snacks?" I asked. They cheered quietly. My wife smiled. For a moment, everything felt ordinary. The station itself was small, a little run down. The lampposts buzzed, moths battering themselves against the bulb. The store had that stale, too cold smell of old air conditioning. The kids darted down the candy aisle. My wife went to the counter, and I stepped back outside to fill the tank. The attendant shuffled over, a thin man with skin too pale, like he never saw the sun. His eyes looked cloudy, his hands shook as he handled the pump. I noticed specks of red on his knuckles but assumed it was oil or rust. By the time we climbed back into the car, bags of chips rustling, tank full, I felt calm again, normal again. 10 minutes later, my stomach dropped. There it was, the same station. I didn't mean another station that looked like it. I mean the same one. The same buzz of the light, the same bent lamppost, the same tired neon sign flickering on the A in gas. Even the same handful of moths circling that one bulb. I slowed. My wife stared at me with furrowed brows. "Did we just loop?" she asked. The map on my phone showed straight highway. No curves, no turns, no way I could have circled back. We said nothing more, just kept driving. 10 minutes later, there it was again. This time, things were different. The kids begged to stop again, saying they were still hungry, as if they'd forgotten we'd already been there. Against my better judgment, I pulled in, just to be sure I wasn't losing my mind. Inside, the shelves looked emptier. The candy aisle stretched longer than before, but no children's laughter filled it. My kids wandered into that aisle, but when I glanced over, they weren't there anymore. Panic surged as I searched row after row until I found them again, standing motionless by the refrigerator section, eyes glassy, staring at the flickering lights. "Let's go," I snapped, grabbing their hands. The attendant stood behind the counter now, smiling too wide. Blood stained his hands, definitely blood this time, dripping down his pale wrists. My wife paid, her face pale, trying not to notice. When the man's eyes met mine, his lips moved, but no sound came out. We left. Back in the car, silence weighed heavy. The kids clutched their snacks like they didn't know why they had them. My wife wouldn't stop glancing over her shoulder at the receding glow of the neon sign. We drove faster this time. 15 minutes, maybe 20. I prayed. The sign appeared again. But now, the lights inside flickered red. I didn't stop. I roared past it, refusing to look too closely. But the kids cried, saying they could see something moving in the window. My wife gripped my arm so tightly her nails drew blood. The highway stretched on, but always the same station appeared, and each time it changed. One loop, the attendant stood outside, waving with hands soaked to the elbows, flecks of something wet clinging to his face. Another, the station windows were lined with pale faces pressed against the glass, all staring without blinking. Once, I swear I saw our car already parked at the pump. Another family, our family, stepping out, their eyes dark voids. By the fourth or fifth loop, the gas gauge no longer moved. The odometer no longer climbed. The sky itself seemed wrong. The stars had shifted, rearranged into unfamiliar shapes. The children stopped speaking. They just chewed their candy, staring blankly out the windows. My wife wept quietly. And me? My hands locked on the steering wheel so tightly the skin split. Still, I drove. I don't know how many times we passed it. 6, 7, maybe more. Each time, darker. Each time, hungrier. The last time I remember, the neon sign didn't say gas anymore. The letters had warped, rearranging themselves into a single word that made no human sense, but I understood it. It meant, you belong here. I don't remember what happened next. I remember flooring the accelerator until my vision blurred. I remember the kids laughing, but it wasn't their laughter. I remember my wife's hand in mine until suddenly it wasn't. I woke up parked in our driveway at dawn. My wife asleep beside me. The kids slumped in the back. For a moment, I thought it was over. A bad dream. Until I saw the moth still fluttering against the windshield. And when I stepped out of the car, my boot sank into the asphalt like it was soft. Like the gas station had followed me home. Story 4. I used to think the scariest part of driving at night was falling asleep at the wheel, but now I know better. The real horror isn't closing your eyes. It's keeping them open long enough to see what the road hides. That night, I saw something no map, no GPS, no sane explanation could account for, and I'm still not sure if we ever really escaped. It started simply, a late drive home, a quiet highway, my family half asleep in the car, the kids in the back seat mumbled about being thirsty, my wife darted glances at the fuel gauge brushing the red, and I silently prayed for a gas station. Mile after mile of blacktop and cornfields stretched out, until finally a glow appeared ahead. A small station, tired and flickering but blessedly open 24 hours. A neon sign buzzed weakly, moths beating themselves to death against a crooked lamppost. It was a sorry kind of place. but it felt like salvation. The kids leapt out, racing for the candy aisle inside. I busied myself with the pump, the handle cold and greasy in my hand, while my wife handled the counter. Everything about it seemed normal. Too normal. We drove off with full bellies, full tank, and I finally breathed easy until 10 minutes later. "There it is again," my wife whispered. I followed her gaze, and my stomach lurched. The same station, same bent lamppost, same moths, circling the same bulb in the very same pattern. The kids squealed for more candy like they didn't notice anything strange. My palms went slick on the steering wheel. I must have taken a wrong turn, I told myself. Maybe this stretch looped back. Still, I pressed harder on the gas. But 10 minutes later, there it was again. This time, something was different. The attendant. He stood outside by the pumps, waving. His hand was smeared, no, dripping, with fresh blood. "Did you see that?" I asked, panicked. My wife stiffened but shook her head. "Just drive, don't stop." So I did. I drove past without stopping, without looking into the glass windows where the kids had laughed 10 minutes ago. But in my peripheral vision, I swore the candy aisle was empty. No kids, no one at all, only red stains on the floor tiles. Another 10 minutes, another station. This loop, the windows were black, like the shop had been gutted. The neon sign still buzzed, but weaker now, as if it was rotting, decaying between appearances. I didn't stop. My foot pressed the pedal until my calf ached. I didn't care about speed limits or tickets, just distance, but there it was again, and again, and again, each time worse than the last. On the fourth loop, the lamppost was bent lower. The moths were gone, the bulb still buzzing but spitting sparks. On the fifth loop, the attendant's face changed. His grin stretched wider than human jaws should allow. His eyes were pale as spilled milk, and his bloodied hands wrung like he was praying. On the sixth, my children's laughter filled the car. But they weren't laughing. Not the way children laugh. They weren't even chewing their candy anymore. They were humming, low and in unison, as their eyes rolled toward the glowing sign. I called their names. They didn't answer. "I think we're not leaving," my wife said softly, her voice strange. Flat. I dared a glance at her. Her face was pale, waxen, like a mask stretched too tight. She was still smiling politely, but her eyes glistened with tears. She had already given up. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles split. "Don't say that, don't." But the sign flashed again ahead. The same damn station. This time, I didn't slow down. I hurtled straight toward it. The sign grew, the moths circling like a halo of ash. The neon hummed louder as if it sensed my choice. And then something shifted. The road swallowed us. Not physically, not at first. But my ears popped, the air thickened, and the world outside the windshield bent like looking through warped glass. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. The car rattled, screaming like every bolt was about to tear loose. And then, we were through. The road lay ahead, empty. The gas station was gone. Dawn came eventually. We reached home in silence. Children finally asleep in their seats again. My wife leaned against the window, pale but calm, eyes shut. I pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, and exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. But then I heard it. A buzz, a faint hum. I looked up. At the far end of my street, in the morning light, right there among the houses, flickered a neon sign. Crooked lamppost, moths circling, even in the sun. And though the glass was far away, I could swear through the window. The attendant was waiting, smiling, his hands wet and red, as if he knew exactly when we'd come back. Story 5. They tell you never to stop in the middle of a storm. Push through, my father always said when I was younger. Rain can't kill you, but stopping in the wrong place can. I used to laugh at that. I'm not laughing anymore, because rain didn't nearly kill me that night. It saved me by giving me a reason to stop and see what was waiting. The storm came out of nowhere. Sheets of water fell so hard the wipers were useless, thunder rattling the wheel beneath my hands. My little hatchback groaned against every gust of wind, the tires hissing across blacktop that looked ready to disappear under a flood. I was exhausted, fighting panic. There was no one else on the highway, no lights, no towns, nothing. So when I saw the flickering sign ahead, glowing pale green against the storm, it felt like a miracle. Open. Just one word, half-faded, buzz-whining as it clung stubbornly to the night. A gas station, small, squat, lonely. I swerved gratefully into the lot, gravel spraying under my tires. The place looked dead. The storm pressed against me in white sheets as I sprinted across cracked pavement. The little convenience store stood in silence, lit only by its buzzing fluorescent tubes. The open sign blinked weakly in the window, but when I yanked the door handle, locked. I pounded once, muttering, "Come on, come on!" That's when I saw him. The clerk, standing just inside, behind the glass. His back was stiff, his hands at his sides, his head tilted slightly like he'd just noticed me. What made me freeze wasn't his presence. It was his smile. Wide, perfectly still, unmoving. He didn't wave, he didn't nod, he didn't speak. He just smiled at me with teeth too white, too symmetrical, eyes blank and dry. I shouted, hammering fists against the glass. "Please, it's pouring! Let me in!" Lightning cracked overhead, silhouetting him. He didn't move, didn't blink. His smile held. My heartbeat stuttered into panic. Something was wrong. No one smiles like that for minutes on end. "Come on!" I screamed, banging so hard the glass rattled under my palms. And then, in a blink, the lights went out. Total black. The store window reflected only my soaked, shivering body and the empty storm behind me. The clerk was gone. Adrenaline told me one thing: leave now. I sprinted back to my car, nearly tripping in the floodwater pooling across the lot. My headlights flared to life as I jammed the key into the ignition, lungs burning. The beams swept across the station, and my blood went cold. Every window of that little store was filled, not just with one figure, dozens, faces, pale, smooth, identical faces, all grinning, wide and too bright, skin stretched tight like masks plastered to bone. Their eyes caught the glare of my headlights, glowing faintly, watching me. All of them, not blinking, not moving, just smiling. I screamed and slammed the gear shift into drive, tires spitting mud and water as I tore out of the lot. My hands shook so badly on the wheel I nearly lost the road, but anything was better than being parked there in their gaze. Rain roared louder than the engine. My heart beat against my ribs as if it wanted out. I told myself over and over, keep driving, keep driving, keep driving. But every time the lightning cracked, I saw shapes in it. Shapes in the ditch, on the side of the road, silhouettes of people, standing, smiling, watching me fly past. 10 minutes down the highway, I finally dared glance in the mirror. The gas station was still there. The sign was still buzzing faint against the rain. The station, the building, the faces in the windows. Only now, it wasn't behind me. It was ahead, waiting. I slammed the brakes, car skidding across wet pavement until it shuddered still, inches from the ditch. I couldn't breathe. No, 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 no. The storm raged. The neon sign buzzed. The moths flung themselves against the crooked lamppost. And every window glowed with pale faces, all grinning at once. This time, one pressed its hand against the glass. Another did too. Dozens of palms met the panes, fingertips leaving slick, dark stains like pressed ink. Even through the storm, I swore I heard them. Faint, muffled, 1,000 teeth clicking in rhythm. I don't remember how much longer I drove that night. I don't know how I made it home, or why my car wasn't found wrecked in a ditch. But now, when storms roll in and thunder rattles the sky, I see lights at the edge of town, a crooked lamppost, a green sign flickering, and rows of pale plaster faces waiting in the glass, smiling, steady and patient, waiting for me to stop again. Story 6. Hitchhiking teaches you to trust your gut. It's the only warning you get when luck turns bad and the night starts to breathe against your neck. But nothing in my insides had ever warned me about a place like this. Not until it was far, far too late. It was night again, with miles of dead road behind me and nothing but truck headlights in the distance. My last ride, a muttering old man who smelled of boiled cabbage, let me off at a lonely stretch. A single sagging gas station with a crooked metal sign, and tacked to the side, a squat little diner clinging to the light like a barnacle. The wind carried a greasy, metallic scent, and somewhere a bell jingled, though I hadn't seen anyone. My boots hit the gravel. I slung my pack on my shoulder, telling myself just a coffee, just to warm up before hiking out to the next town. When I stepped through the glass door, everyone inside turned at once. The diner was washed in yellowish light, as if stained by decades of cigarettes. 4 people sat scattered along the counter. A woman stirring coffee, a thin man reading a newspaper upside down, a kid sucking on a completely dry milkshake. Behind the counter, the waitress, a gaunt woman with a frozen smile, stood statue still, eyes like pins. Their gazes bored into me, wide and waiting. I felt my breath stutter. "Need a lift?" the milkshake kid asked, voice high, words drawn out in a sharp rhythm that felt wrong. "Coffee?" the waitress chimed. Her grin never reached her eyes. The thin man intoned, "Life's a circle, isn't it?" Like a prayer or a eulogy. I stammered, "No, just, can I have a coffee to go?" She nodded without turning, already pouring black liquid into a chipped mug. The other customers whispered between themselves, fragments falling into one another. "Never leaves. Stays forever. Pay the toll. Rides repeat." I wanted to laugh it off, joke about creepy small-town diners. But something prickled down my spine. My own reflection in the window looked pale, almost translucent. I decided to leave. I finished one sip, too hot, bitter as burnt rubber, and rose, tossing cash on the counter. "Thanks," I said, reaching for the door. The knob twisted easily, but when I stepped through, I was in another hallway, still crowded with tables. The same fluorescent hum, same sour smell of old coffee and fried grease. When I looked to my right, the gas station shop. To my left, a row of booths, customers hunched over meals. The doors were everywhere, but every door led back to more diner, more shop, more gas station. It was like a mirror world bending around me. I turned back, and now the customers were closer. The waitress right at my side, holding a plate of food with a dead fly floating in the gravy. She whispered, "You look tired. Stay a spell." Panic bloomed in my chest. Heart in my throat, I sprinted between tables, ducking under the swinging kitchen doors, barreling through a fire exit. But every exit spat me back into the same place. Booths whispering, faces watching, coffee cooling by the window. The thin man's head snapped around. "Your time's up," he said. None of them moved, but I swear they all leaned closer, breathing as one. I ran. I clawed for any way out, pushing through a door with bright sunlight pouring through, finally outside. Gravel crunched underfoot, air cold, sharp, metallic again. But the station had changed. The lot seemed wider, the lights buzzing in strange, uneven bursts. My heart leapt with hope. I saw my ride waiting where the hitch had left me off. A battered sedan, engine running, pumping gas. Relief swept through me until I saw who was at the pump. It was me. Not just a look-alike, a mirror. He wore my jacket, my muddy jeans, the same tired face. But he was hunched over, hands gripping the pump with knuckles white and dark splotches staining his shirt crimson. As I watched, frozen, unable to move, the other me began to scream, mouth opening wide and wider until it was a black hole, soundless but horrifying in its agony. No voice, just the echo of it. Blood welled at his throat as an invisible blade dragged across his neck. Blood spurting, mouth gaping, eyes wide with terror. No attacker, no shadow, just empty air and a loop of violence ripping through flesh. He collapsed slowly, knees buckling, arms twitching, eyes locked on mine. I stumbled back, bile rising in my mouth, feet tangling in loose gravel. All around, the station windows filled, one by one, with the faces from the diner, smiling sorrowful smiles, nodding slow approval, their mouths shaping silent words. Welcome home. The road only brings you back here, again and again and again. I ran into the night, gravel burning my feet, the scream of that other me silent but unforgettable in my ears. I don't know if I ever left that gas station. Sometimes I wake up and see my reflection in a window, and it's not quite right. Or I find myself walking into a diner, bells jingling, everyone turning to greet me with wide, knowing smiles. Maybe I'm still running. Or maybe I'm just filling the tank, waiting for the next lost soul to step inside. For more stories like this, share and subscribe Goofy Horror.